right down to the spirit side. The hypnosis that we're practicing, that Chris is using, that's extremely important, because if we try to do this on our own, and I know because I've been at this for a long time, if we just haphazardly try to move from here down to here, we have 4 different mechanisms that are trying to stop us. Okay, one would be the old stories that we've inherited at the time of conception. Remember we said last week the very simple stories. They're either I'm not good enough or I can't make it stories. It's one or the other. That's in the brain or heart side. Okay. Number 2, we have people that may be actually encouraging us to fail. 3, we may have demonic influences that could happen. Okay. And 4, if we naturally work from the brain area first, I say first, if we naturally come up here to create ideas first, it always devolves into anger and frustration in the brain area. If we use the heart first to feel our way through, that devolves into fear, doubt, uncertainty. So any one of those 4 or more are going to self-sabotage us. And I don't care what our intentions are, we're going to go through self-sabotage. So the easiest, best way that I know is to follow these simple mechanisms to move from this human side down to here, the spirit side. Now people ask, well, what can I expect if I move down to the spirit side? Well, I want to give you some stories tonight because I believe stories are the best way for me to learn, and I think they can help you too. And we're going to start tonight with Sandra Stewart. Okay, Sandra has a great story to tell. She retired from teaching after a good number of years, right? And since then, she's been following her passion, and she's become very successful with her passion. So, Sandra, would you mind explaining what that is?
Thank you, Gary. I've been a student of Gary's for quite a while now, and the word when I think of the journey that I've been on, the word that comes to me is transformation. If you knew me 10 years ago, I'd be the person sitting in the back, checking everything out. Making sure I wanted to be here, making sure it was okay, making sure maybe I wanted to raise my hand and say something. And I have come from that person in the back row to the person standing up and speaking in front of people. So I call that transformation. And in the past, talk about the stories, my brain would go round and round and round with the stories, and my heart would feel all the emotions of the stories. And I made some decisions. I'm sure we could trade stories in here from our brain and our heart that I learned a lot of lessons from. That's the easiest way to say it. So I'm here doing, part of my passion is encouraging people. I'm a natural born encourager. So anybody who's new in particular, please relax, enjoy what Gary has to say. Trust the process. I'm here to tell you the process works. Like I say, my brain was moving, my feelings were all over the place, and I have learned that if I go to my source, that's where the power is. The power to connect to my source, that's where the truth is for me. The power to connect with other people doesn't come from here or here. I thought it did. If I thought about it enough, if I felt enough, but that was not true. So I encourage you to connect with your power source, God of your understanding, Creator, whomever, and transform your life too. It's an incredible journey. They're wonderful people, great companions on this trip. And so, more than anything, I'm here to say, please go with it. Give it a chance. Be open.
Sandra, would you tell them about the speaking engagements?
Okay. I have, thanks to Gary, I got to practice in here quite often. But I have become a speaker, and my main topic is the power of your words. And once you begin to realize what comes out of your mouth, number one, you manifest it. You can curse somebody with those words. You can bless somebody, encourage, discourage. That has totally changed my life. And one of the first things that happened was with Gary. He'd say, "How are you today?" "I'm okay." And he said, "Could you bring that up a little?" So whether I felt like it or not, that's the thing with me. It's just because I feel like it looks like it, I still can be in that higher energy. And the other thing that, one of the first practices was gratitude. I taught high school kids. English is a second language, economically disadvantaged, you name it. It's my calling. It's been part of my journey. However, it was a tough job. And the first time he said, be grateful, I'm going, you gotta be kidding me. You know what I do for a living. And so I started practicing it. It took me a long time. And sometimes I'd have to go to my desk and stand there and pull out the drawer like I was looking for something and just be grateful. But what a difference it makes. So anyway, my new career is speaking in front of groups. I can do faith-based, secular groups. I mean, words are words. The power is the power. And this getting into spirit, and for me, I have to actually hear an elevator. That's how it works for me. More than visualize, I got to hear clunk. So anyway, I'm glad you new people are here, and I'm excited to be in class one more time.
Well, what's your next speaking engagement?
My next speaking engagement is in Saxe. There's a community out there. And then Little Rock. I'm working on Sedona. That'll really be fun. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
These are the Unity churches.
yes,
Yes.
Unity churches typically.
Okay.
But I've spoken in front of women's groups. Like I say, it's gifts for all of us. It doesn't matter. And I've taught this to my grandkids. And let me tell you, they are very open to this. And I have one sister that she's learned not to say, poor Patrick, poor anybody. And the other thing that she's resisted a lot of this, but we talk about it. And she will make a statement, I'm not good enough. And then she'll change it to, she doesn't like in the past, but she can use up until now. I wasn't good enough. Because using those words, you're keeping yourself trapped. You're keeping another person trapped. So instead of poor, you say amazing. Because you trust this person is amazing. May not look like it, may not feel like it, even about yourself. However, it's your truth. So, that's
good.
That's my news story.
Very good.
Way to go, Sandra.
Thank you.
Sandra is very, I can add a little bit to the story here because I'm very proud of her. Very proud. A few weeks ago, she realized that there were going to be 3 or 4 ministers at the Unity Church on Forest Lane from different places in the country in Texas also. She'd been preparing all this time for this event in terms of being able to approach these people and ask them to their face, can I come to your church and speak? Okay. Now that took a tremendous amount of courage. She put it on the line. Now she's been building up and building up and building up for that by talking to groups at the Forest Lane Church, 200-300 people. But she never put it on the line like this. She did. She did that day.
I told Gary I didn't have to go in the bathroom and say, I wonder if this would be a good time. And have that thinking conversation with myself. I just did it.
That's right.
It was very powerful.
She did it.
Very grateful.
You took the action, because remember, it's not just about praying from here, it's taking action. Once we understand what God wants us to do, we take action. Well, you did that. Okay, and it was amazing how that unfolded because people were coming up, these ministers were coming up to her and talking to her and asking her if she would do these things, like go to their churches and talk. She didn't have to say much except yes. It's a great story, and you deserve it. Let's give her a hand. What I love about this is that when you think that most people would be retiring, she's starting a brand new career. Okay? Brand new career.
Yeah. When I retired, quote unquote, my family said, we'll give you a retirement party. And I said, no, I want a what's next party.
There you go.
So that was very powerful.
Very good.
Just like Louise, huh?
You got it.
You know, when you said that, I just remember when I was at Unity Ministerial School,
Yeah.
there was a lovely Quaker lady who came in and she said, I was taught, when thou prayest, movest thy feet.
That's very good, very good. Now we have Patrick. Patrick is my Renaissance man. He knows a lot about many different subjects. His sports are hair-raising, and yet on the other hand, he can look into your soul and tell you everything about you. So I want him to give you a little bit of his journey right here, and also he'll talk to you about the pendulum and some of the measurements.
Great. So he asked me to do just a brief explanation about something. I brought a visual aid. Most of y'all know me as the pendulum guy, right? Right. And so I was talking to my neighbor Bob very quickly. He asked, how long have you been doing this and when did you become aware that you had these abilities? I very chalantly said 5 or 6 years ago, because I didn't know up until then. I spent 4 years studying with a very famous teacher, Deborah King, and I graduated in her master's program for energy healing. I'm a trained energy healer. Pendulum work was just a very small part of that. But I started doing expos and found out that they like pendulum work and card reading. So that's what I do. Now, one thing that I've learned is that from Gary is that when you're in your spirit and you allow spirit and the guides to guide you, anything's possible. I am an active healer, and I was trading off with somebody 2 weeks ago, and she had a headache. And so I always work at the head, and I work energetically. And where I usually work, these are the energetic bodies, and I brought this just to show you so you understand. They're kind of connected with our chakras. I work with the etheric template. The etheric template is in the 5th level of our field. It's about right out here. It is an exact replica of our physical body. You got that? So energetically, I can work in the 5th level of the field and affect things directly in the body. Although I'll make no medical claims with this at all. Right? So what I learned very quickly was, as I was working on her, I got this inspiration from Spirit. Let's do some craniosacral. Now, I've had a lot of craniosacral done it myself. And I got my ego out of the way. I did not argue. I said, okay. So there are my hands not touching, and I started visualizing this craniosacral, and did several minutes worth, worked on the head, worked on the neck, did this and that and the other. I could visualize the whole thing going on in the 5th level. And she got up when we were done, and her headache was gone. She said it was freaking amazing. I was like, good job, angels. So now I've learned to do, I told Gary, he said, yeah, it's entirely possible. I've learned to do energetic craniosacral, and I didn't have to go to 8 years of med school to learn that, or go to upledger training. So, gang, the reason I'm telling you this is that this stuff works. When you get into your spirit, and you connect, the guides and the information that's in the field can come through you. It's amazing what you can accomplish. Spirit has, each and every one of you have something to do as a part of the whole. And if you just listen, it'll really work, okay? All right, thank you. Pendulum. For the new people, I use a pendulum as a tool, and it's just a tool to measure energy. And Gary usually has me do measurements during class. Last week I didn't get to talk about it. I do a baseline when we all show up in class, from 0 to 100, 100 being completely in our spirit, 0 being like we're dead, nobody's in their spirit at all. And I usually measure 3 times. I measure baseline when we come in, although y'all don't know it. And I usually measure after Gary speaks and explains things, before we have Chris's fantastic meditation, and then after the meditation. Last week, because of all the new people we had, it was at 19 when we started. Some of you old-timers know that we've been up in the high 20s, right? After Gary spoke, it was in the low 30s. After Chris's meditation, Any guesses? It was
80 something.
It was 90.
Wow.
Good
Yay,
job,
Chris.
Chris.
Way to
Palpable.
go.
As my friend Ruthie said, it was palpable. So I'll report at the end of class where we are.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay, I'll give you a third story, and that involves Sherry Cook and myself yesterday. Sherry said it would be okay to say this, so. Yep. About 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, from 3 to 6, we were getting reports from different sources that there were going to be hailstorms coming, and severe. We all know that. And we could see the storm clouds forming. Well, Sherry came in around 5 o'clock or so, and I started working on it, but before we did that, we made an agreement, the two of us did. We wanted to see if we could help this situation and prevent any hail from falling and do whatever we could to mitigate this storm. So remember what Christ said. He said, if there are 2 of you praying in my name, I am with you. Okay? So that's what we did. That's what we did. We went from our human side, the fear, the anxiety, the tension about the storm, went down to the spirit. We both did. And as we were doing this, I sent my spirit up into the clouds to see what was happening. So I could look into the clouds, and it would be like you looking out through a window where you have tremendous wind and rain coming down, and even cyclonic action going on. It was very dense. There was a lot of that forming. So we started praying. We did our prayers, and we left it up to God. Whatever God wanted to do in this circumstance, from the spirit area, we knew it would be okay. No anxiety, no tension, no stress, we just turned it over. And that's what we did. At the end of the prayer.
You said Satan was there also,
True.
right?
True. It's a good point. It's a good point. Part of the reason why those storms were coming in, Satan was pushing those storms into this area. That's a good point. I forgot about that. So we also bound him and let God, Christ, and the other elements bind him and then take care of the rest of the weather. Thank you. Thank you for that point. And even right now, he's unhappy with what we did.
And you said Satan was working?
Satan was pushing the storm towards us. Okay? So when we finished this and we did our work, looking again through that window, through my spirit, now there was very little rain, very little wind, and any cyclonic action was almost invisible at the end of that. Now, we stopped at that point because I wanted to finish working on Sherry, and we just left it at that, knowing that whatever is going to happen was in place and there was nothing to be concerned about. Okay? Just like when Pat does his work, okay, Sandra does her work, we turn it over, we're confident from the spirit area that whatever is supposed to happen is happening. Okay? Now, I gave you 3 versions of different elements. What's common to all 3 of those versions? What's common? All right?
That everybody turned it over to their spirit area, to their spirit or their source,
Right.
and they let the source or spirit guide them.
That's right. Very good. Very good. Good. So we took action also. We weren't just praying. We took action, and the actions were whatever we believed we did. For Pat to do what he did using spirits to do craniosacral work, I spent years learning craniosacral. Years.
He's jealous.
So yeah, very good, very good. It's amazing. I mean, you spend all this time, it's such a delicate process, there's so much at stake doing it correctly, and yet doing it through energy, he did a great job. He did a great job. Sandra took a big leap of faith. Not on her own, but that's from here. She didn't do it on her own. That's from the brain or heart area. She did it working with God and the other elements. Well, it comes through. Now, it doesn't just work for me, Pat, or Sandra. It works for all of us. All of us. The question has always been, since mankind left the Garden of Eden, how do we get to that point? Well, it's very easy. We move out of the human side and we move down to the spirit side. Now, scientists will say they don't understand the power of prayers. And it's pretty easy to understand why, because they're stuck in our human side. In the human side, we have limitations of space and time. In the human side, only what I can do physically is what gets done. in the human side. That's pretty limited. We move to the spirit side, there is no limitation to space and time, none. And we can integrate ourselves into that and ask for help, and it's amazing how things can change. The smallest amount of belief, smallest, will get this going. So, I've had times when I've just been here in this area for less than a minute. I wanted something so badly, I was here for a minute, went back up into here for other reasons, and still it turned out beautiful, even though I was only here for a minute. So the strength of your belief is not really the issue. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's trust, the amount of trust. Even a small amount of trust brings large results. Right?
I have a quick question. You
Sure.
said that there was space and time limitations.
Right.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Okay. Well, think about the power of prayers. Okay, think about the power of prayers. We know that prayers can be very helpful, even at 10,000 miles, to affect the outcome of a situation. We know that. Okay, that's been well documented. But a scientist, a physicist, can't explain that according to human conditions. Well, they come up with bizarre theories, and they come up with different concepts, but it's all bizarre. Why can't we say that it's normal, that we can affect actions at a distance as being normal for every one of us? Now, if we say it's normal, we have to come up with an explanation. And if we say it's normal, we have to leave our human side. We now have to understand we are not God. Okay? We're not God. Because if I was, I could do that by myself. I can't do it by myself. I need spiritual help. So if we could say that that was normal, that we're doing that every day, then we'd have to come up with a spiritual solution. And a lot of people don't want to believe in it. So it's easier for people to somehow believe in bizarre theories and concepts and blame it on quantum mechanics and things like that. But that's not true. That's not true. So in general, space and time limitations are, if I can touch it, if I can move it, if I can see it, that's as far as it'll go if I'm stuck in my human side. Okay? In my human side, brain or heart. If I go to my spirit side, I could go 10,000 miles away, give me a name, I could tell you everything about the person without ever meeting them. You can do the same thing. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Please.
Tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I'm trying to put together the thing of getting from the crown chakra energy, God coming
Right.
in, maybe coming down here.
Sure.
Because when I've had some knowing,
Right.
total peace and knowing, the feeling, awareness is coming from here, it may go down there,
Right.
but it starts there rather than starting here. So,
In that case, what could happen is, as the energy is coming through, it may align, it may temporarily align the brain, it may temporarily align the heart, and it may be in alignment with the spirit in that particular case, but that's what we'd be doing from here anyway.
so you're saying you should feel or
Right.
sense
Right.
in this part of the body?
Right, because
More permanent, predictable.
more permanent, predictable, because again I say, if I start working up here, and I start thinking of this as crown chakra, and I start thinking of this as spirit center, I also have the brain up here. So now I'm going to be in conflict immediately between any information I get from spirit and any information I get from brain. I'm now in conflict. And the same thing will happen in the heart area. So I went to a neutral spot, and also, if you look at the human body, and you look at the physics of the human body, and you draw lines and vectors through the human body, they all intersect right here. Right here is where they intersect. They don't intersect up here, and they don't do it here. They intersect here. This is the center of our body, right here. The geographic, physical center, and I believe it's also the spiritual center. Now about the chakras and the other areas, I'm not using those, so in my system, I don't see that. I created a model, the model works, I make predictions, the predictions come out correct. In physics, we would say it's pretty accurate, okay, if that's what happens.
And the other one that in the Bible, I know, if two or more together on earth or together manifest. What I've been trying to put together with that is the difference between, I believe, that one person can go to God and miracles,
Absolutely.
whatever, but
Absolutely.
what was it really talking about if two or more on earth?
Right.
rather than mention just one
Sure.
also.
Sure. I've had situations, a lot of situations, where just myself or an individual have been able to get good results by themselves working with God. Okay. Now, in our case, I wanted to make sure that we were both working together to keep it easier and also to see the effects. And it was pretty easy to do it. Plus, it's good training.
So is the Bible just saying more power with two than there is with just the one? Do you know what I mean?
I like to believe that two show more faith than one, that we're getting more faith involved. Two or more begins to create more faith. I believe God wants us to share this with others. Okay, this is not our personal thing. This is about helping others and let them get involved with it. I believe that's part of it. Okay? Does that make sense? Please.
Yeah, I just wanted to share the story, especially like what you had mentioned, like being in the spirit for a certain time and then you go up back into your human side. So this whole week, it's been really stressful, and I've been always in my human side. And yesterday night was today was our deadline, and yesterday night was really crazy. So, but I tried
Yesterday
it.
was bad too.
Yeah. So I did do the meditation, and I just went to my spirit level, and then I said, okay, I'll leave it up to you. Whatever happens, I'll take it. And even today, we weren't sure whether we were going to hit it and everything. But then, again, I was operating from my human side the whole morning, and then again, I said, you know what, I've done it. Well, I'll just step back and see. And we did hit our deadline
Very good.
with a lot of time. So I just wanted to share that story
Thank you.
to everybody.
Thank you. It does work, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
And very good. And every time we do this, and every time we see the effects of it, and we go back to the human side, we keep wondering, why do we do this, right? Because we make it hard on ourselves.
Yes,
But
and
we're
it's like
human.
you're always stressed because of that.
But we get better at it.
Yes.
Good job. Good job. Look, I want to turn this over to Chris, because what's important right now is we learn how to use this hypnotic state to move out of this human side and move down. The work he's doing is very important to allow us to do this. Okay, so Chris, please, do you mind taking over?
All right, if you could just maybe uncross your legs, sit up nice and straight, and as relaxed as you can. Relax your shoulders, relax your facial muscles, maybe close your eyes. And we're just going to tune into our breath. So, as we've been doing, we're going to expand the belly, fill it up like a balloon with our inhale. But this time today, I want you to just, on the inhale, pause for just maybe 1 second. And then exhale, and use your abdominal muscles gently to let the air out, expelling every last bit of stale air in the lungs. And again, pausing on the exhale for 1 second. And just repeat this, inhale. Feeling the belly expand, pause. And then exhale, using the abdominal muscles gently to expel every last bit of air out. Keep this rhythm going, inhaling, and just imagine a circular pattern as the breath comes up the nose and down the airway, filling up the lungs. Imagine it just circling down towards the spirit center and then back up the spine and back out the nose. Keep the breath full. And on the exhale, the slower, the better.
At least twice a day, and that's from Dr. Dulce. He is a neurosurgeon in Colombia that helped a friend of mine, well, she became a friend of mine through her journey, Angela Sierra. I told the story last year in class, and I can recap it real quick since we have time, and maybe go into details in other classes. We're kind of running late. But she was a very prominent businesswoman in the late 90s, was with a colleague and got in a terrible car accident where she crushed the whole right side of her head, where she had hemorrhaging, air in her brain cavity, crushed her whole inner ear, had intense bring some more detailed notes and pictures next time, but basically the neurosurgeon that originally saw her, that was on call at the hospital, one of the top in the country, gave her a couple of days to live, sent her home to be with her family, and said, it's just a matter of time before spinal fluid leaks from her nose and she passes. She's in extreme pain. Her family didn't give up on her. They went and found another neurosurgeon that actually uses hypnosis and saw him, and in hypnosis is the only time she was relieved from pain. So he recorded it, and she constantly listened to this recording. She had bones that were moved 5 millimeters and 3 millimeters in her face that couldn't be surgically fixed because of where they were and how bad they were damaged. So there wasn't a treatment for it. So using positive imagery and visualization, she used imagery of a magic needle and thread, taking the bones and moving them back into place to take these off of her optical nerve that was causing extreme pain, blindness, paralysis in certain parts of her body. So amazingly, she worked with this over 2 or 3 months, regained her sight. She was able to walk again, completely healed herself without the use of surgery, without any other uses of modern day medicine. Once Dr. Dulce showed her the power of her own mind. So Angela healed herself once she knew the methods and ideology behind hypnotherapy. So that's a lesson for another time. But the script that we read, and I went over a little bit last week, is Dr. Dulce's format. I molded it for our class, of course. But it's an amazing guy. I got to meet him over Skype. He's in his mid-80s. I still practices medicine and still does hypnotherapy in Colombia and teaches as well. So if anyone has any questions or want to talk about their experience. Yes, sir.
You got to meet Angela too, right?
I did.
And what
spent
did
a lot
she
of
say about what's her present day situation?
She has complete function of everything. She does have a little bit of eyelid droopiness that she can't control, but other than that, she is fully recovered. Her accident was in 1998. Again, very prominent businesswoman. Wasn't spiritual, very religious woman, but not spiritual, not into the alternative healing arts, any of that. So she immediately became drawn to hypnotherapy and is now one of the directors of the top schools in the country. So she's sharing her gift and sharing that with as many people as possible. So it's just wonderful. And she's sharing, he's sharing the gift with us as well. So it's just great to be a part of, that group and being able to bring these healing methods that are proven to you guys, so we can all share them and teach ourselves how to do it. And that's what this is a self-hypnosis audio. Any other questions? Gary, you want to wrap up?
Chris, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. One thing I just want to bring to our attention. Last Thursday night, before class, I met one of the students downstairs. She asked me about her upcoming surgery. And when she brought that up, I could see it wasn't going to go well. Okay. Now, she knew there was something wrong. I couldn't say this to her because I wasn't sure how to say it. At the end of our class, because we prayed for her last week, we prayed for her outcome. At the end of our class, now I knew the surgery was going to go extremely well. The next day she has the surgery. I can tell you without doubt, the surgery that was performed was probably the finest surgery that particular doctor did in 5 years. It worked incredibly well. Your prayers work. Praying from the spirit area works. Getting down there using the meditative techniques works. Using essential oils, using sounds, using different concepts that we'll be talking about next week, that will help us also. So next week, I'm going to have Ruthie talk about essential oils, because that's been very helpful for me to get down here too, together with the meditation and hypnosis. But I also want to take you through how do we use this area. So you're going to make predictions starting next week. So we'll have 2 classes on making predictions. Okay? I'll give you a few tests. You can experiment with it with your spirit. You can tell me what the answers are. You've got to learn. You can do it. Okay? Any questions before we end this? Please.
I'd just like to say thank you for your prayers, because day before yesterday I had my eye surgery and I can see beautifully.
Very good. Very good.
I want to make sure I heard you. Next week you said you're going to send about sound. Did you say 2 classes? I got mixed up on what you
I'm
were
sorry. We'll have Ruthie. She's our expert in essential oils, because I want her to introduce that. It's very important. Also, I'll be giving you some tests to use by going down here to make predictions. Like I'll ask you to tell me what number is in an envelope, or something like this. I'll come up with something hopefully clever. I'll push you. All right, but we'll see. We'll have some fun.
And where'd the sound from? Because I know that.
I may bring a sound machine. Okay, so we can play that too. Okay, so we can play that too. I'm sorry. Is there a question?
Oh, I was just going to add to what she said. Thank you all for your prayers last week, for your meditation that calmed me down Thursday so I could have a success Friday. I appreciate Dr. Berman. He helped me pick out the surgeon. He helped me pick out the dates. And I truly believe Friday what was going on could have directly affected me. It wasn't about me. The surgeon and the facility was having an awful day.
Yeah.
And I think that's what him and I, because all last Thursday I was like this, and things like, I had my first cataract surgery, and in case any of you don't know, I don't mind sharing it, but things like that don't bother me. And I was bothered last Thursday until I came to class, until we did the breathing, thank you, until we did the meditation. I calmed down. Dr. Berman helped when asking for prayers. The whole situation calmed down. Today I went back for my week's follow-up, and in my right eye, I have worn glasses since 4th grade. I can now see 20/20.
Wow. Congratulations.
Pamela, if we take that a step further, when we were scanning to see what day you should go in for surgery,
Yes,
it's no happenstance that this class met the day before.
yes.
It's no happenstance. I didn't realize it at the time that that's what was going to happen, but isn't it amazing that we don't have to know all the details?
Yeah.
That they're already taken care of, and all we have to do is have faith. It's pretty neat the way this works.
Yeah, and it's about that much. Like I said, I don't usually get rattled, but I had hope because I worked with you and things have always turned out all right, and because of the class I had 10% hope and had 100% success.
Was it cataract surgery you had?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else before we break up? We have prayers.
Or pendulum.
Pendulum, thank you.
Pendulum report, yeah, pendulum report. The beginning class, we were at tonight, what did I say, 25?
25.
25, after he did his explanation, we were around 35. After the wonderful meditation, where I got lost, I don't know where it was. 88, 89.
Great.
Good job, guys.
Good job.
Great job.
Very good. Okay. Well, how about if we get together, because we need some